fellow Beastians and all those sexy people out there. Today on Dropcos Dungeon, we're going to be talking about a topic that is really close to my heart, and it's basically, we're going to talk about the early days of my role-playing hobby. And what game is it that I'm going to talk about? Well, it is the one and only, this hefty box, The Dark Eye. Now, as you can see here, it says Das Schwarze Auge, it's in German. And yeah, this is the game. This is actually the second box, basic box that I bought, because when I started, my brother bought the game back in 89, 90. I was about, I think, 10, or maybe like 90, something like that. I was 9, 10, something like that. A while ago. And maybe even 8. So I was very little, but this was the first real RPG that I talked about. And you can see it came in a box form like this. This is actually the one I bought later as a teenager in high school, because we had a ton of Dark Eye stuff, 2nd edition, but we lost it all. So I don't know, it's like it just disappeared. I don't know why, I don't know where, but as you can see, you can open it, of course, and here's the basic rule book, you know, all the goodies and stuff. Really cool stuff. I mean, I don't want to, you know, I'm going to do probably a Dark Eye collection video. It's not a super extensive collection, but, you can see your stuff. So I'm going to, this is one of the books I bought later. So, yeah, this is the Dark Eye. And the Dark Eye is one of the oldest German RPGs out there. It's one of the oldest RPGs that is still being played and produced today. Like, the oldest one is called Midgard, and it hasn't been produced and played till about 2005, and then the company went bankrupt or something, and I'm sure there's still people who play it. I never played it as a kid. I never even heard of it, you know. The Dark Eye, or Das Schwarze Auge, it was just much more publicized and much more in the eye. Like, when people talked about role-playing games, this was the game that most people thought about. Now, I hear that Midgard was much more complex. Dark Eye was much more like old-school D&D, much simpler. And, yeah, it's set in a high fantasy setting. And, as you can see, I mean, the rules, this is the advanced rules. So this is the core, this is all you need, really, to play the book. Then they had the basic books, which are even that thinner. This is just the very distilled, very basic rules, simplified for beginners. Like, they did this so if you wanted to start role-playing, this was the best choice to do at the beginning. And then you could convert your characters from the first, from the basic to the advanced rules. This is the book with some adventures, a solo adventure and a group adventure. There's a weapons tome. I'll go through my collection. But one of the things here is that one of the things I liked in this box was the map. Okay? I'm going to show this all more in detail in my collection video, but right now I just want to show you. This is the world of Aventuria. This is where all the games, video games, and everything is pretty much set in. Now there's a couple of other continents, but we won't get into that. You know, we're just going with the basics here. Now, you know, and this was like my brother bought the book, and he would play with a friend of his, okay? He bought the basic box and some, you know, some expansions, but first it was the basic box, and then he bought always more, and he played it a lot with his friend. And I remember, you know, they didn't allow me to play it because I was really little. I was like 8, 7, maybe even was earlier. Like, I was very little. I think I was even maybe 7, 6. It's been so long ago, guys. But it's been so long ago, but then eventually, once he played it with his friend a lot, okay, and they had lots of cool adventures, and I would bug them always. I was always pranked them because I wanted to play too, but they said, "Oh, you're too little. You don't have the patience." And but eventually, he allowed me to play. And then I played. And usually, it was just him and me, and we had some great adventures. You know, I mean, I have more boxes, but again, I'm just going to show them quick as I talk. Like, this is the box for Magic and Clerics. It's pretty neat. This is the box for monsters and creatures and animals. It's basically your expanded bestiary. And this is a setting box for the southern countries, like the Wüste the Extensive. So it was a desert and some swamps and everything. It's kind of an Arabian kind of setting, you know, pseudo-Arabia. It's like the equivalent of Al Quantum, but very detailed, very cool. And so the thing was, we played The Dark Eye, and we played it a lot, and I had all kinds of characters. I know I had a dwarf. I had a dwarf Balin. I had him for a very long time, and I think he eventually got turned into a werewolf or something like that, or to a zombie. I know I had a character turn into a zombie and went to a werewolf. Like my brother was a tough ass DM, but we had some great times. And then eventually, he made even his own character class. He made a ninja class, and he made a whole talent system for like a kung fu kind of karate type talent system. Because the way how you would play the game, you would use a d20. This is actually the d20 from this box, black d20 you got, and you would roll like D&D, but in this case, you would roll under the target number or below would be good. Above would be a failure. Okay, so that was one of the main differences. And obviously, this game is, you can see that it started out as a D&D group, and then they modified the game to the point where it became its own game. But it does play somewhat differently, because in this game, for example, if we're just talking basic combat, you got an attack roll, and then you see if you succeeded or not. If that succeeds, then your enemy has a parry roll. You don't have normal AC like that, you know, where you just have to roll above the AC. In this case, the person has an active defensive mechanism, you know. Now, if you have multiple enemies, that sucks because you have only one parry and one attack. So the other guys can potentially hit you if their attack succeeds. Now, your armor class for your armor is more like damage resistance, okay, which means is if they hit you, and then you have I think a Rüstungsschutz or something, an RS or something, basically the armor class, and that number gets taken away from the damage that person does. So they hit you, they damage you, but depending on how big your armor is, it depends on, you might not even get hurt. You know, that simulates you could be in plate mail armor. If somebody tries to stab you with a dagger, they most likely won't do enough damage because the armor just has that much, can soak that much damage up, you know. But, of course, they have also a critical hit and a critical fail if you roll, and in this case, the critical hit is a 1. If I roll a 1, I actually roll a 2 now, it's kind of funny. If you roll a 1, then it hits, of course, automatically. And in this case, you could always imagine, well, he just got in between the two metal armors, just between them, and was able to stab, you know. So, but, of course, you know, it's a 1 in 20 thing, you know. So, and of course, if you have a critical fail, then you fumble and everything, and so it's in that way it's very similar. I like it that you have an active defensive mechanism. Skills are very easy. You basically have a skill point, I believe. Let's see here if I remember this correctly, because it has been quite some time. I know still how magic works, but skills should work almost the same way as magic. There's the character classes. Okay, here we go, yes. Now the skills and magic work the same way. And basically you have a number in your skill from -10, or like that's like the worst, and up to 20, that's like the best. But usually you start out between minus something and 1 or something. And what that means is that if you have to roll against 3 of your attributes, okay? And it depends on what skill it is. So, like for example, you have here, you know, plant knowledge here, or even dancing, you know, and or Gassenwissen. That's like kind of like knowledge of the seedier parts in town. And you got to roll there for Klugheit, Intuition, Charisma, which literally means it's basically you got to roll an intelligence check, an intuition check, and a charisma check, which kind of makes sense. You need smarts, you need intuition, and you need charisma, and that's how you find it out. Now, if your number, your skill number is in the minuses, then it becomes that much harder. Like, for example, if it's -5, you can attempt it, but there's a lesser chance that you will succeed. It's like, basically, for every time you roll, you have to take the 5 and then distribute it in a way that it's harder. So it's like a debuff in a sense. But if you're at 0, you can roll normally, and if you have pluses in it, like let's say you have a 10 in it, then you have you can use these 10 points to kind of fix your roll in a sense. If you roll now, let's say you roll a 1, or you roll a 20, and you needed a 10, then you could, and you have, let's say, 15 in that, and you can use 10, and you have 5 left, you know, for that roll. And it's really cool, I think, you know. And the same way spells work, you know. Of course, with spells, it's a spell, you know. Whatever the spell is, that happens. And there's some spells where they can resist, you know. There's magic resistancy, but you roll also 3 against 3 attributes. Then you have either plus or minus, and then you can, you know, fix your roll. And then if you succeed, you remove your extra energy, which is like mana in a video game. It works the same way. You have life energy and extra energy, like hit points and mana points, you know. But I like the term astral energy. I think it sounds cool. And yeah, that's how magic works. That's the basic kind of rules, you know. And I always liked that kind of system, because that's really all you needed to know for a game. That's pretty much it. There was boxes of rules that expanded on these rules, but, you know, for the most part, that's all I used too, you know. There's all kinds of cool monsters. A lot of the, you know, monsters you know too, orcs, goblins, skeletons, a lot of times in their own way, in their own style. You know, orcs are called Schwarzpelze, you know, they're like black furs because they have actually thick black fur, you know. And goblins they can call Rotpelze, I think, but rarely. And because they have red fur, I guess. But it's interesting. They have also, of course, a variety of dragons. It's pretty much a typical fantasy setting, but it's a little bit more low-key, a little bit more low fantasy, but not so much that it wouldn't be, you know, you still have your wizards and your witches, your druids, you have your warriors, you have your elves, of course, you know, everybody loves the elves. You got your good old dwarfs, you know, you gotta have your dwarfs. And that's pretty cool. The game itself, I like the setting a lot. And if you are a fan, I'm gonna now just check. I just, for my last video, I met somebody, sounds interesting, but I met a guy who does actually videos on the Dark Eye. And he's a German guy, and he's really into it too. Probably more into it than me, because he plays also the 4th edition, and he invited me to his game, his 4th edition game. What is wrong, Internet? Why are you being like that? There we go. Okay, and his name is Denerobin, and you can check him out on his YouTube channel. And he invited me promptly to his Dark Eye game, English-speaking Dark Eye game. And I'm really excited because I haven't played 4th edition Dark Eye at all. I knew about it. I didn't buy any books because I thought I wouldn't find anybody interested in the game. Also, from what I hear, it's become more complex and more like GURPS, where you like buy your attribute, your skills and everything. And I kind of want to, if I'm going to DM, I'm probably going to DM 3rd edition. You know, I'm old school like that. Like, but playing, as you know, that's a different thing. You know, I'll totally play 4th edition. I'll play anything pretty much, you know, just pretty much, you know, but there's always exceptions. But what I'm saying is, the Narrowbin is really cool. Check out, he even did a Let's Play on the Dark Eye Northland trilogy, and yeah, this is my past of, and just what I want to add quick, basically I had the game, my brother had it, he got it, we played it, the 2nd edition. And then then we lost it, and we lost interest in role-playing games, and for a while we played video games more and did other stuff like basketball and whatever, rollerblading and whatever people did in the 90s. And then eventually in my high school years I got the 3rd edition box, you know, because I played it actually with some Hungarian people and also with my cousins and friends. Whenever I got a chance I played it, you know, and we had good times. Didn't play as much as I wanted to, but I think that's always the case, you know. And after that came the next big chapter, which was in college mainly, and that was GURPS. But that's for another video, fellow Beastians, and I'm going to finish this little retrospective on my DSA days. And I'm actually going to play very soon in a 4th edition game, and I'm excited for that. Actually in a couple of hours only, so yeah. So thank you if you have watched till here. I really thank you. I really enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for some more videos if you're interested, and I'm gonna be, you know, churning out more videos here because I enjoy doing that. So yeah. Anyway, we're Death Muggle Doom, fellow Beastians.